Hello, today we're going to be talking about moral nihilism. A touchy subject, I can imagine, for like a lot of people. Oh my gosh, you're saying that morals don't exist? Oh my gosh, you're a terrible person, blah, 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 yada, 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 whatever. Okay, I'm here to say, yeah, all that stuff made up. Not necessarily that I'm a bad person. You can think I'm a bad person, regardless of whatever random definition you have of bad. What makes me good or bad is just literally dependent upon like your made up standard in terms of how a person should or shouldn't behave. And you know what? I do that to other people. People do that to other people. It's, what we do. It's our way to establish control. Morality is guilt and manipulation. How else are you going to convince somebody to not do something unless you make them feel a sense of shame and guilt? So, you got to fuck them up. You got to make themselves look at themselves in a way that, oh my gosh, I shouldn't have done that, and therefore I need to change. Or even the complete opposite. I shouldn't have done that, therefore I should carry this guilt, this like overwhelming, immense, horrible feeling in my gut for the dreaded XYZ thing that I've done, they've done, whoever's done. It's false and it's fake. Now, people get their panties in a bunch over this when you mention it because, like, okay, here's what I've noticed. People think they're so clever when they bring up their whole, like, oh, well, what if somebody were to, like, kill your mom, kill your dog, kill whatever type of person that they would imagine that you would care about? All it is an appeal to emotion fallacy. Bro, you're not arguing as to how that morality is actually objective, how it has like a clear, crystallized stance outside of, let's say, subjectivity at best. Because I know what you're doing. You're just trying to trigger an emotional reaction. And when you hope that you can hit a sore spot, you're going to be like, see, gotcha. Morality is objective after all. There is a definitive stance towards right and wrong because, oh, see, you're getting so upset. But nah, man, I see right through you. I see right through you. It doesn't even matter if you piss me off. It doesn't matter if I piss him off, she pisses him off, whatever, all this kind of stuff. We're all just subjectively being angry. For example, even take the example like, okay, what if somebody killed your mom? Because a lot of people assume that, people are going to care about their mothers and stuff like that. Well, you are aware that there are people that don't like their moms, right? You are aware that there have been people that have killed their moms. There's literally a word for it. It's called matricide. There's a word for killing your father. That's patricide. There's a word for killing your sister. Sororicide. Add it to your vocabulary if you weren't aware. So you're not doing anything by doing that. Because regardless of like what moral hypothetical you decide to throw at me, I could literally still say it's subjective. Regardless of as to how I react, it's just going to be subjective at best. The made up chemical wirings in my mind that make me feel a certain way. Random. It's not there. It's fake. And it's an illusion. And when we're all doing this, nobody's making any actual logical sort of like arguments because they're just trying to get through to a person using either, let's say, intimidation tactics, shaming tactics, anything to get that person to submit to your made up moral code or like whatever. Now, the other thing people are going to draw their attention to when you make the conclusion that, oh, morality is not real, there's no definitive stance of like morality, is they'll bring up God. And I'm not even going to cover the existence of God here because you could just watch my other video, essentially calling religion a fairy tale over and over again, yada, yada, yada. It's called Nothing Will Save You. Yeah, go to that video if you want to see that. But, okay, God. Even if I follow your premise that God does indeed exist and God dictates morality, I just think to myself, the Euthyphro dilemma. And if you haven't heard of it, I'll try my best to give like a quick rundown for it. Essentially, there are 2 points being made here. Okay, if God, like what a lot of religious people will say, Muslims, Christians, like whatever, is the author of morality, he dictates, he implants it in our heart in, the fucking stupid emotional way that people want to talk when they're preaching the goodness of God and how we establish right and wrong because of his, like, almighty whatever the fuck. They'll say God dictates what's right or wrong. This, like, supreme ultimate being. Now, here's the thing. If that's the case, then that makes it completely arbitrary to God's will, whatever he wants to be, good or bad. Let's say God wanted you to kill somebody that you care about. Now, I know a lot of you religious people are going to be pivoting and be like, oh, but God would never instruct me to do that. God would never instruct me to kill somebody innocent, whatever, and all this kind of stuff that you would be against. Well, that's not what I asked, though. That's not what I asked. I'm creating this thought experiment where I'm telling you, okay, if God did this, then how would you go about it? Like, I didn't ask you what God would or wouldn't do. I'm asking you if you're so firm and consistent in your beliefs towards morality being completely directed to God. If God ordered you to do this, and by your definition, everything God says is law, if God wanted you to do something that would personally, morally make you uncomfortable, will you or will you not do it? If you pivot with that, then, we both know why. Like, let's just be honest with ourselves. We both know why. Because if you would have to admit that you would do something that makes you morally uncomfortable because it was ordered by God, then your ideology is inconsistent, because if God is where you derive your morality from, but then hypothetically God wanted you to do this, something that would make you, uncomfortable, then it has nothing to do with God implanting or instructing anything with you. You subjectively feel uncomfortable with the idea of God, let's say, instructing you to stomp on your puppy, throw it against a wall until it's like a bloody mess or like whatever. That makes you uncomfortable. So you don't want to say yes in order to be consistent with your belief that, okay, God has to be, the ultimate arbiter in terms of like good or bad, because it screams full in your face that at best your morality is subjective. And another thing would be that, okay, if God is only an enforcement of good, then that means morality is above God. He's just an enforcer. So hypothetically, if there is a concrete stance in terms of what is good or what is bad, then God isn't even a necessary equation. Like what I said, at best, if he's real, all he is an enforcer, but he didn't get to decide these rules, because if something is definitively bad, whether or not God says or doesn't say so, then God is not necessary for morality. If morality is completely dictated over God's arbitrary feelings in terms of like what's right or wrong, it doesn't matter how you feel. So you would have to admit that if God wanted you to do things that hypothetically you and I would consider atrocious, you and I would consider extremely uncomfortable, would make us, want to fucking not be in that situation, then essentially you show yourself to have no actual leg to stand on. Your morality is not logical. A lot of you conservative motherfuckers, because a lot of you are religious, like to throw around facts, don't care about your feelings. Well, it's the same way the other way around. Feelings don't care about facts. I'm not being logical when I make moral claims. You're not being logical when you make moral claims. Because, just because you're uncomfortable with like how something is, why do the facts have to care? They don't. The only thing that dictates any made-up sense of order in this world is power and control. And who has that? Our governments at large in so many countries, cultures, and societies. We have to submit to these rules to people that have higher power and order than us. Look at how many times society has changed throughout the years. What was once considered okay, I don't know, slavery, the Holocaust, yada yada yada, all of that stuff. And what do they all have in common? The people that had the power to make it happen. That's it. As long as you have power and control, you can enforce any rules you want. And it's random and arbitrary, regardless of who's uncomfortable, who's happy. Look at this universe and see how cold, plain, and indifferent it truly is to all of it. Because realistically, I can imagine that if we weren't here Sure, maybe this Earth would still be here. All of these fucking inanimate objects, blah, 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 this and that. When it comes to morality, this is our arbitrary shit that we have to enforce onto other people. If, hypothetically, anyone does something bad, and like, hear me out here, nobody technically even has to suffer consequences for anything. And this is what I mean by that. Okay, if you do anything that anybody would consider terrible, society at large, like whatever, okay, you could do it. But there is no like manifestation you could imagine, from the universe where like you would be surrounded in prison bars if you did XYZ. So the only other options would be, okay, you would have to willingly put yourself in the cell, or, people, government people, would have to forcibly take you and put you in that cell themselves, because the universe truly did not care what you did to other people. Only other people can or cannot care what happens to other people. So, without us, morality is not even here. Even with us being here, it's all just power dynamics at play. And what I've already said, and I'll say it again, if you have power, you can enforce any rules that you want. And a majority of people are sheep, so they're gonna fucking eat it up. Like, I bet a lot of these motherfuckers that complain about, like, oh my gosh, racism now, and like SJW type of like bullshit for like the greater good. Just imagine how many people were saying that back then, when hypothetically, little by little, there was like less discrimination progressing throughout like these years. Obviously, prejudice and all that stuff hasn't like gone away, but you could have easily imagined people saying the same thing as well. Like, why would you want to stop like segregation, let's say? Like, I can imagine that. Or like, why would you want black and white people to like, unite and be closer together when we're supposed to be separate because blah blah blah, white people are superior than them? But okay, these ideas of human equality between, like, let's say race, anything like that, any of those like fucking like social issues, it's not like that was just accepted overnight. There had to be a societal shift going around to do it. And even within now, even if we can say, okay, we've made like a lot of like progress and stuff, what are these SJWs doing? What are these fucking like protesters doing? They're trying to shift dynamics, because that's all it really is. You get your way if you are at the highest level on the power dynamic ladder. So there you go. We live in an indifferent world, and we live in a world filled with essentially fucking emotional little crybaby bitches is what we are. Oh my gosh, I didn't get my way because somebody did that. I do it. You do it. Everybody has their own made up make-believe way as to like how everything can be. And of course, we're always going to be fighting for as long as our species exists, because, oh, people want different things. People have different ideas, and you can't fucking accommodate everybody. This idea of a world peace is absurd. It's absolutely absurd. And I'm not even saying that because peace is or isn't real. Good or bad is or isn't even real. Now, when we're having a morality discussion, we can throw all different kinds of connotations. So we want this and this and that. But like, okay, again, it's just a game of manipulation. It's just a game at trying to tug at the heartstrings. It's just a game as looking like somebody that's oh so self-righteous and will lead the way like a fucking wannabe Jesus or something. So, fuck it all. We're just gonna die. So, whatever. Shit happens. Call it good or bad. Call it like whatever. But at least, at the end of it, it's just a pitch black dark tunnel at best, if there even is anything after death. So we won't have to deal with this crap anymore. That's what I have my fucking bets on, because you are not special. Even this idea of hell, and I know I'm starting to talk about religion here, but like whatever. Particularly about religion, not even necessarily about like fucking the morality and tied to the religion. Like, okay, what makes you so special to think that you deserve happiness for eternity in heaven? And what makes you think you're so special to even hypothetically do the things to avoid like burning in hell? Why would this indifferent universe need to pay attention to you that much, where, oh my gosh, it has to decide and dictate whatever should or shouldn't happen to you? Call it God, call it like whatever. Like, you're not special. Like, get over yourself. Oh, and another thing I want to add as to like how unstable moral foundations are. Like two people who can agree that at best morality is subjective can share the same moral stance just as much as two people who believe in objective morality can also disagree with each other. So this also fundamentally tells me that it is still ultimately morality is subjective at best because it does not technically exist. Like, take Islam, for example. I know people are going to say not all Muslims are terrorists, blah, 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 and like whatnot. And yeah, not all of them are terrorists and whatnot. But honestly, a Muslim that is such into like an extremist form of Islam to do terrorist attacks, they believe that their morality is just as objective to do that compared to the peaceful Muslim who also believes that their morality is in the same way objective. So, like, fill in the blank there.